Hi everyone, it's Lisa from budgetequestrian.com, and today I'm going to show you how I tack up my horse Frisbee and get ready to ride him. So when you're getting ready to ride and you're going to be tacking up English, this is what you're going to need. You're going to need a horse. You're going to need all of his grooming stuff, his brushes. If you use any protective leg wraps, you're going to need those. You're going to need a saddle pad, going to need your saddle and your helmet. Very important to have a helmet. You're going to need a bridle, and then you're going to need a girth. So now we're gonna tack up Frisbee. So once I have Frisbee tied up and ready to get ready to ride, the first thing I'm going to do is groom him. This is kind of an overview grooming, and what I do is put on any fly spray or anything like that just to keep the flies away while I'm grooming him. And I brush him pretty thoroughly, but not like I'm doing a complete, fun grooming session, and wipe out his eyes and wipe out his nose just to check him over and kind of give him a once over before I get ready to ride him. I also make sure to pick out his hooves and look for anything that, might cause him to have pain while he's walking. And then after I picked out his hooves, then I do like to put on some hoof oil on his hoofs, just because the area that we're riding in, it's very sandy and it's very dry. So I just want to give him a little bit of extra protection. Once I have him all groomed and I've gone over his legs, then I like to apply my leg wraps. And you can use any type of leg protection, boots or polos, whatever you have. I like to use polo wraps because they are inexpensive. They give some good support for his legs, and they match my saddle pad, which is fun. Polo wraps are a really nice tool. I think everyone should know how to put polo wraps on your horse. And what I do when I get to the back legs, I don't want to get his tail in there, so I tie his tail in a quick little knot, and then I finish putting on his polo wraps. Once I have my polo wraps on, then I put my saddle pad on, and usually I'll put that more forward on his withers because I don't want to ruffle up the hair as I'm putting the saddle on. So I put it on pretty forward, and then I grab my saddle and I just gently put my saddle on top of the saddle pad. And then once I still have a channel between the saddle pad and his back, I kind of slide it back and position it where it's going to go. Then I adjust the keepers, the little Velcro strips on the saddle pad, and that just helps to prevent the saddle from moving while we're riding. Once I'm happy with where my saddle is and I've put the saddle keepers over the billet straps, then I am attaching the girth. And I will typically keep my girth separate from my saddle, and then I go to the far side of Frisbee, attach the girth to the first and the third billet, and then I bring it up under his tummy, and I do the same thing on this side. The saddle pad that I have, it doesn't have the girth keepers on the bottom. It just has the billet strap keepers on the sides of the saddle pad. But there are some saddle pads where you can actually put the girth through up underneath the saddle pad, so that way it'll keep it in place too. And when I'm girthing him up, I like to make sure that it's not super tight because Frisbee has a tendency to get cinchy. I just put it on the lowest billet hole just to keep the saddle in place. And after I have his saddle on, then I put on his bridle. And Frisbee's pretty good about putting his bridle on. Frisbee's pretty good about everything. So I just slide it up over his ears, put the bit in his mouth, and then I tighten up my noseband and my throat latch, and I'm about ready to ride. And once I'm happy with how he's tacked up, I just grab my helmet and we walk on over to our little riding area. Before I get on him, I do walk him around just a little bit, and then that's when I tighten up my girth to where I want it to be, because I don't want my saddle to roll to the side and I really don't want to fall off my horse. So I just like walking Frisbee around a little bit, getting him warmed up, and so he knows that he has a job to do. He's not very forward. He tends to be a little bit lazy. When we first start doing our flat work, it's just to warm him up, and I just let him kind of do what he wants to do, make sure that nothing feels like it's pinching him and that he's comfortable, and then we begin our arena work. I have to use a crop sometimes on Frisbee. He gets a little bit lazy. Now, after I'm done riding him and I've cooled him out, then I bring him back to where we started to untack him. And when I'm untacking him, I will take his bridle off first, and then I will put on his halter. And I kind of like to scoop his nose with my halter when I put it on. That way I have my arm around him in case he were to decide that it was time to leave. And I don't want anything to happen to my saddle, so I want to make sure I have control of my horse. Once he's tied up, then I will remove my saddle and saddle pad and girth, and then I will unwrap all of my polo wraps. And when I'm unwrapping them, I roll them up as I go, because that way they will be ready for me to use them again the next time that I'm going to be riding him. And I usually start the same way that I put the polos on. I start the exact same way taking them off. And once I have everything off of Frisbee, then I just kind of groom him one more time. I don't want to see any marks on him when he's in his stall, so I want to make sure to get off any sweat marks or any marks where the saddle was laying. And I also want to go over his legs really well, because if he had any sweat or anything underneath the polos, I want that area to be all fluffed up too. And it is wintertime here. I really want to make sure that he doesn't have any areas of where his hair is compact and laying flat, like matted down, because that will actually make him colder. I don't want him to get cold. Well, that is my video of how I tack up my horse before I ride. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow.